Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a conflict where the person yelling, "I won," might just be a distraction from the real winner. It's a story of illusion, hidden costs, and a very calculated strategy playing out completely in the shadows. Let's kick things off with this quote, because it really nails the core question we're looking at today. When someone has to constantly tell you they're the king, you kind of have to wonder, are they actually a king at all?
And that's exactly what our source material seems to be pointing to. We're seeing these daily, really forceful declarations that the US has already won, that Iran is totally crushed. So let's get into this, because this public confidence, well, it seems to be masking a much, much more complicated reality.
So, this brings up a huge question, right? If the victory is so clear-cut, what does the actual evidence on the ground tell us? And maybe more importantly, what if the true beneficiary of this whole conflict is a country that hasn't even fired a single shot? So, first up, let's peel back the layers on that official story of victory and look at the cracks that are starting to show. Because behind all the confident speeches, there are some pretty big signs of turmoil inside the American leadership itself. And wow, this really just pulls back the curtain on the chaos happening behind the scenes. I mean, think about it. Right in the middle of a war, the Army's top general is basically forced out over strategy disagreements. Other senior officials are on the chopping block, and the president is even publicly hinting that he might blame his own vice president. This just doesn't sound like a well-oiled machine cruising to an easy victory. Okay, so enough about the internal drama. Let's talk hard numbers. Because rhetoric is one thing, but the actual cost in money and military hardware, well, that paints a starkly different picture. First up, the money. In just 1 month, the price tag for the American taxpayer, just for lost aircraft, has already blown past $3 billion. And remember, that's just the hardware, not the total cost of the war. And listen, we're not talking about just any old equipment here. We are talking about more than 30 advanced U.S. aircraft. That includes the supposedly invisible F-35 fighters and those feared MQ-9 Reaper drones. These are the cornerstones of American air power, and they are being taken out of the sky. And this is a huge deal. It points to a really critical vulnerability. The U.S. has burned through 40% of its premier defensive missiles, the Patriots. To build that stockpile back up could take 4 to 5 years. That leaves a massive gap in its defenses. And when you just lay it all out like this, the scale of the damage is, well, it's staggering. We're talking about losing a crucial AWACS plane, that's the military's eyes and ears in the sky, and 8 huge refueling tankers destroyed on the ground. This paints a picture of a military that has been hit hard, and maybe, just maybe, underestimated its opponent. So here's the bottom line. If America is taking these kinds of hits, and Iran is basically just in survival mode, then it forces you to ask, who's actually benefiting from all this? We have to start looking elsewhere for the real winner. And the answer, according to our source, isn't even in the Middle East. It's thousands of kilometers away, where a global power is quietly watching its main rivals just wear each other out, and it's seizing the opportunity. See, China is playing the long game here, while the U.S. is getting bogged down, draining its resources, its money, and its political capital. China is achieving major strategic goals without risking a single soldier or a single dollar of its own in the fight. So the big question is, how is China actually pulling this off? Because believe me, this isn't just luck. It's a deliberate, multi-part strategy designed to get the most gain possible from America's distraction. Let's break it down. It's a really clear 4-step playbook. First, they actively help Iran fight better. Second, they lock down their own energy supply for cheap. Third, they get priceless intelligence on their main rival. And fourth, they use all the chaos to make themselves look like the grown-up on the world stage. Let's dig into each step. Okay, so for step 1, you have to understand, China isn't just selling stuff to Iran, no. They're acting as Iran's eyes and ears, giving them pinpoint satellite data on where U.S. ships and planes are. Their navigation system is making Iranian drones deadly accurate, and they're supplying everything from advanced radar to the key chemicals for solid rocket fuel. So what's in it for China? What do they get for all this critical help? Simple. Cheap energy. A staggering 80% of Iran's oil exports now go straight to China. And they're buying it at a huge discount. While the U.S. was twisting arms to get countries like India to stop buying, China just stepped right in and collected the prize. And this right here, this might be the biggest prize of all for them. Every single U.S. missile fired, every plane deployed, every strategic move, It's all a live fire lesson for China's military planners. They are getting the entire American playbook, its strengths, its weaknesses, how fast it burns through ammo, all without any risk. That is priceless data for any future conflict, especially, say, one over Taiwan. All right, finally, let's zoom all the way out and look at the big picture. The long-term impact here goes way beyond the battlefield. This conflict is actively reshaping global alliances and power dynamics, and it's creating a vacuum that China is more than happy to fill. Our source really paints this picture of two completely different leadership styles. On one hand, you have a U.S. foreign policy that seems chaotic and impulsive, and it's pushing allies away. On the other hand, China is projecting itself as stable, predictable, and mature. And you know what? The world is taking notice. Leaders from Canada to Germany are now flying to Beijing to talk business. And we're not just talking about hurt feelings here. This is real action. America's oldest, most traditional allies are openly defying Washington. You have Spain, France, and Italy all blocking U.S. military access. Even Poland, a very close ally, refused to hand over its Patriot missiles. The Western alliance is fracturing in real time. And this brings us to the ultimate prize, the real endgame, the foundation of American economic power. With control of the Strait of Hormuz now a question mark, more countries are thinking about trading oil in the Chinese yuan. Every single one of those transactions that moves away from the dollar chips away at the petrodollar system, threatening the very core of U.S. global economic dominance. You know, there's an old proverb that just perfectly sums up China's entire strategy here. There's no loud chest thumping from Beijing, no declarations of victory. They are just quietly watching, learning, profiting, and letting their rival make unforced errors. So what's the big takeaway from all this? It's that the loudest voice in the room isn't always the one who's winning. While America is tangled up in a costly war, declaring victory to a world that's growing skeptical, China is quietly playing a completely different game, one where it wins without ever having to fight. And that leaves us all to wonder, are we witnessing the quiet, calculated rise of the next superpower?